screen back to this. So, I had some questions for anyone who refers back to this later. Someone was asking me what hotkeys I use, so I'm gonna just talk about this. Let me pull up my stream to make sure it's getting audio. It is. So the hotkeys that I use, there's actually not that many. It's kind of like mostly mouse controls. Middle click, drags, shift, middle click, orbits, right click obviously is right click, left click to interact. The main hotkeys that I use, there's a few that I know. F for fillet, or fillet, whatever it is, and that's where it makes it round, like that. I wish there was a camphor hotkey, there isn't. So the other main hotkey that I usually use RC, which is circle or rectangle. It takes you into sketch mode. If you click on a surface to put a circle or whatever. Um, um, anyway, the other main hotkey that I think you'll find you use is the S key, which brings up this shortcut thing. You can put, I use extrude a lot too, that's E. You can put things here. I tend to put split body, camphor, and mirror. I use those all the time. And I've discovered that sometimes you get tiny errors. In things. So if you go to select face priority, you can zoom in really close and grab the faces of weird holes and things, and just delete them or extrude them or whatever it is you need to do to get rid of them. A couple other things. I put some things up here. It looks like they changed the user interface back to what it was, which is interesting. I was just barely getting used to the new one. Anyway, so we've got the section analysis. This is very useful. To go back, you can, chop, and, I guess you say you temporarily chop it, and then you can just turn it off and go back and see. That's especially useful for making a view like this, which is like the split in half view. Which, once you mirror the parts, you can't go back to that without cutting things, and that's a pain in the butt. Although, actually, a lot of the time I find that when I do mirror parts, I will keep them separate halves. They'll make them either separate components or just separate bodies and try not to combine them. Anyway. So, and then I also put the text tool. I find that adding the shortcuts up here and on this is especially useful for ones that don't have hotkeys. Like we've got the extrude and fillet, and I didn't actually mean to strictly put those on here. I'll just take them off actually. So all of these, none of these have like a hotkey that makes them easy to get to. So I put them here to make it easier to get to them. Same with like up here, I put the sweep and the mirror up here and the new component. Oh my gosh, it just keeps changing. I don't actually remember putting new component there. Anyway, so hopefully that helps. Like I said, a couple people were asking me about that. So let me check my notes. This is why I made the notes. And I did all of that. Oh, okay. So what I'm going to do now, I think, is I'm going to cut through this upper part here that's clipping. So the way that I'm going to start that, we're going to grab this sort of shroud, and I'm going to split it. So we can split along faces. You can see the face is highlighted. Or if you move it into, I guess like on a line, you can grab the entire component, and it'll just split where they contact. So then we can take off that part, and you can see these lines here are cut to shape. I'll even move that so you can see this is the shape that it cut out. So we can handle this a couple of ways. What I usually do is the lazy thing. I press V and it goes away. It just hides the body. However, if you do that a lot, it will start to bog things down, and you'll want to go in and delete the bodies. The other way to do that is we can just go into the upper shroud here. We can go into the bodies and you can pick which one it is. I guess it's body 1. We cut that. Delete it. And now we have a shape that's cut open for, you know, these things. So the other thing that we can do, so the next step in, I guess, in cutting this all apart is I'm going to grab this face and I'm just going to drag it down. So, and now it's flat. There's no interactions here in the middle except for right here in the front. And the way that I'm going to deal with that is I'm just going to cut it. Use the barrel to cut it. Gotta find the barrel. I didn't label it yet. Find the barrel, turn it off, and then finish cutting, and then turn it back on. Actually, I'm going to turn it back off because we need some tolerances here. We need a little bit of extra room here. So usually for sliding parts, I do 0.1 plus 0.5 millimeters. And so a half a millimeter will let things, printed things, slide across each other with some friction. Often. You may, depending on how smooth you want it to slide, like it's like a trigger or something, you'll probably want to go up to like 0.75. So I was actually thinking, so I love the pigeon, but it is not, it's one of my favorites, but I'm working on this here. Let me turn it all on. I've got, this is working as working prototype. It is going really well, actually a lot better than I expected, and that makes me kind of nervous, but it's actually like, it feeds, it ejects, it loads, it fires. I'm getting, with the 10 kilogram spring, I'm getting 120 to 140 FPS, depending on various factors. So I've got a spring primary now. And this has been in development for a very long time, so it's a long story, but essentially this is going to be, this is a collaboration with G.26, who made the Spring Thunder, and so this is going to be for sale in his shop. It's a shell ejecting lever action. You load the shells in the loading port on the side, ejects out the top, well, ejects out the top side, sideways, and it's actually really cool. I'm really, really excited about that. They have a lever gun in the new Call of Duty. I was thinking about getting it, and you may have convinced me. Whenever it comes out. When is that, next month? Anyway, this is like the dream gun for me, and I am so excited about it. But that's not what we're here for, so I wanted to make something simple, relatively simple for, you know, people to get the idea of how, at least how I design these things and stuff, and do things. And I also probably will release the actual step files for this, for this blaster when it's done, if it's done. There's always a bit of a question there on if I can actually do it. So, I need to check. So I'm going to check. Alright. So this is a 15-degree rotation. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep this nice and simple. We're going to put a stopper here, and that will give it a place to rest a spring. So I just press C again. to make a circle, I'm going to cut that down. That was E. Bring these up a bit. That's a little too little material. And so now we have a rest for this. Anyway. I really want the magpie to work. I have been experimenting, so I'll just pull that up because I've got it open, because I've been working on it, because I'm kind of at an impasse with my lever action, that it's working, but I need the metal parts that are, I think, roughly a month out, and a few other parts to kind of advance it any further, see how far we can take the power and stuff, and need to do some efficiency things and stuff. So I've kind of been putting it, I kind of paused it. I also want to war test it. So I need to look and see when our local war is, the next one for October, I guess, and have it ready and not forget my shells or break it. I forgot my shells at this month's event and didn't have it, and that made me really sad. And then I broke it right after. So provided those two things don't happen, I will test it, and we'll be able to go from there, move it up. You know, maybe move up the potential power. The 10 kilogram spring is a little bit heavy to prime anyway. I'm worried about going up past that, like to the 14 that I have. I have a 14 around, or more, like an 18, like it should fit any long shot spring. So, like the turf, yeah, exactly. So like the turf 18 kilogram might actually work in it, but I worry that it won't be able to withstand that kind of force internally, especially like without like metal parts. And so it's like I said, it's kind of on hold until, like, it's working now, but figuring out just how far it can go, we'll have to wait until I've got some more parts. I also need to make a new barrel and things like that. So anyway, so here's the magpie. So this is the old internals. They're overlapped, sorry. So there's this yellow arm thing. This is the trigger catch that the trigger pushes on and lifts the hammer. The hammer rotates the cylinder and actuates the pusher, so everything's kind of hammer driven. So you actually don't need a trigger at all. You can just hammer fire this, and the one time I took it to a war and ran it, that's all I did. I only got 2 tags before it stopped cycling, and I don't know why it stopped cycling. Something went wrong. But I got 2 tags just hammer firing it, and it was a lot of fun. I tried using it exclusively after my caliber jammed really badly. We had to disassemble it, kind of badly pull out the barrel, and stuff. So I ran only that. I wasn't loaded up for it. Had the second cylinder that I had wouldn't cycle for some reason. I don't know why. Too finicky. So it wouldn't cycle, so I had to just scavenge, and it was actually very difficult, but a lot of fun. It would have been way more fun if it had worked reliably. Well, honestly, because 6 gives me a very nice even number. Each rotation of the cylinder is 60 degrees, and that makes it really easy for me to animate it, and it makes it easy for me to, check the reliability of cycling and stuff, and also just because I wanted it to be 6. At first, this started as a modification of the Viper. I guess I deleted those parts out of here. So it started as a Viper mod. I was just going to visually do some stuff. He let me use the files and everything. It was really cool. And I ended up changing it so much that I ended up making a whole new blaster. And at that point, at some point during that development, I decided I wanted the side drop cylinder, and I wanted to have the 6-round capacity. It's also actually kind of hard to keep up capacity on like loading when you're scavenging. Meeker, who has designed many things, he's a very long-term member of the community, but he doesn't have a huge presence everywhere. Um, he does a lot of scavenging in the way that he plays, and what he's found is that you can't really keep more than 6 shots loaded if you play fully scavenging. And I actually found that to be really true. I was loading 2 at a time and then shooting rather than like loading all 6 or 8 in the case of like the Viper or something. I actually feel like it'd be really hard if you had something where you're just loading like 2 shots at a time, really easy, like a breech loader that was really easy to actuate or something similar to that, or like, you know, a double strike or something. I think you'd be probably more effective than having more shots if you're playing entirely like off the ground. Anyway, so this arm is what actuates the hammer, and the trigger rotates the arm. I will pull up an animation. Um, I think this one will do it. So, or not. Oh, that's right. I changed some of my components. So what happens is just like a real revolver, they have the little arms that grab, and then they allow 2-directional movement. They'll snap back into place. They're like toggles. And so my theory is that by moving the um, the arm, the cylinder catch, the yellow one, out of no, it's not a Scar replica. It's something else. It was based off of some concept art. Yes, I look forward to that too. That would be great. I like meeting everybody that I can. So the change is to move the catch to the side so that we can get more travel out of the hammer with the trigger. If that doesn't work, I will just directly link them so that they can't come apart. So we lose the double action, which loses the click, and then that's sad, but we'll get more reliability. Anyway, so back to this. This is, so it's hard to see it. I will actually just pull up the picture that I saved of it, if I can. Oh, that's right. It'll be here. So this is the concept. I saw this on Pinterest. I love Pinterest. This middle, it looks kind of like a sci-fi ACR Scar type thing. It looks really cool. I really like this concept. I think it has a really nice, like, general, like, the silhouette looks really good. So I'm just using that as a basis to create this, which was going to be just a basic no frills rifle. That's what I have, no frills assault rifle. That's the name. And I am having a really hard time wanting to keep it as no frills. I wanna make this shit weird. And that's probably what this video is actually going to be a lot of, or stream, I guess. So it's semi-auto right now. This is a 35mm solenoid, and those just fire once per trigger pull. They'll actually stay thrown if you hold the trigger, and you can do a select fire circuit, so you can have a pulse generator that tells it to continuously, it recycles the electric signal. So it's only semi-auto unless you do that, and then it'll be full auto. And the really cool thing about the solenoids is they give a super hair trigger semi-auto. So it's not mechanical like the Strife or the Pigeon, where you have a long trigger pull. You can have no trigger pull and an instant response. It's super, like, they're awesome. I've got 2 sitting around that I haven't put to use, so I may put them to use here. But I also had terrible ideas. What I want to do possibly is angle the mag on this because it looks cool and will be fun. The thing that I really want to do is figure out maybe like thons, like the Katana mags, and do like an angled feed at about 10 degrees, and then do the double loading like my bullpup, but actually make the mag a little bigger so that it can fit two Gen 3 darts next to each in line. That would be so fun, so I'm going to do it. Yeah, so with these flywheels are the Hurricane wheels, so they're kind of like lower power anyway. Um, some people claim they get 130 on a single stage. I chronoed like 125 highs and 115 lows on one stage. So it's lower power, but then we can fit them in a much smaller space, so we can get two. I did put, so this is an open flywheel project cage. This is a 43.5, so it's a little bigger. You can just see on the size comparison how much more we have to account for wheels, where this one is entirely contained in this area with the wheels. They're pretty small. They're not as small as like FTW wheels, but they the bigger size gives them more power. So that's what I'm going for here. This setup can get 170 FPS, right, from what I understand. So that's my eventual plan with this. What I want to do, maybe I'll just see if I can, is do an angled mag because no one has yet. There's a lot of things that people haven't done that I want to do. So I guess what I'm doing now is I'm going to grab all the faces and I'm going to see if it will let me rotate them. Sometimes it won't calculate certain... Oh yeah, see, it did weird things. 10 degrees. Well, I mean, I might be able to work with that though. Is it this? Oh yeah, it is, okay. We'll just ungrab that. Alright, and look, we have angled it to 10 degrees. I want to drag it upwards. It won't let me. Okay, we'll just... so you can already see there's an error there because it doesn't want me to do this. Okay, but it will let me do that, so... this is what I want to do. I want to have an angled mag, and then, do I have a dart mock-up? Well, I know there's one in my folders somewhere. It wouldn't be, oh, it'd be in miscellaneous, maybe? No. Interesting. Mag shoving. Oh, there we go. Okay. I do actually think that it would probably feed at an angle. What we'd do if we wanted to leave a normal magazine in, but at a the 10-degree angle, what we would do in that case is we would extend the guide over so that it squishes the front of the dart in line with the cage here, and then it should feed just fine as long as the pusher is large enough to grab the dart, but not so large that it's grabbing the one underneath. I don't think that that would be terribly reliable, so it would be better to design a printed mag for just that reason. And I've got to check the length of this. I've got to change active units. Okay, here we go. So I use this all the time because some things are just, they're, measured in millimeters and some things are inches, at least the way that I'm working. So I do that a lot. So this is 37 millimeters. So we gotta extend that one more millimeter because I want it to be a 38 millimeter because that's how big worker Gen 3s are. I now have 1,400 of them. Well, give or take. We've had some decaps. I'm sure we've already lost some, but, so what we're going to do here is make a copy. So I've decided this is not a no-frills rifle because I can't help myself. I'm sorry. world. This is who I am, and you can't make me do anything else. Okay, I don't like that. We can just, no. I'm going to combine those, make it one thing. I don't love the look and shape of these darts. So what we've got to figure out now, oh wait, let's combine those two. So I now have to make this back one a new component. So we'll go to from bodies and we'll grab it, and now we have two darts. Yes. Oh my gosh, Ellie, that's amazing. So what this tells me actually in looking at this is one, my mag needs to be bigger, which is not a big deal. We'll just adjust it as needed. I guess I'm going to be designing a whole magazine, so, you know. Well, let's do that a little more precisely. So I like to, where I can, do things on pretty simple measurements. So here I'm going to do it 2 millimeters, not 2.5. I'll have to eventually, I think, check the feed on this, like by making a lot. Oh god. So check the feed on this. It looks like the darts are probably sitting low, so what we want to do is probably move the mag up. We got to check as many of these sorts of things as we can before we get too far into it. We want to make sure everything is feeding nicely and smoothly. So the solenoid is not going to cut it here, actually, if we do the 2 round bursts. So what I'm going to have to do now is go into other places, and I'm going to actually take in the geared system that I developed for my bullpups, which is where I did the first real test of this 2 round burst system, and it worked pretty well. Not perfectly, and I think it can be improved. I'm not sure if I've got exactly the right ideas of how. I haven't really looked at it. But essentially what this is a very long throw pusher that uses the trigger as the one of the gears. So this is going to make us have to rethink some things. See. I think this will be worth it, personally. So what we've got here, since it was set up for a bullpup, as you can see, this pusher is way in the back. Because we had to have a lot of travel in the back for it. Alright, looks like this is low, so I'll just raise it up because we can do that. Okay, I have to be back in a bit. Ooh. So I'm going to take out my battery mock-up. We're going to cut. We've still got these guys to cut too, so sometimes I find that I need to chop things, like large amounts of things. So I'll just draw like a rectangle. I'm sure this is the wrong way to do it. Hello there. And just cut. Anyway. And actually that would be the easier way to solve this problem too. We'll just cut everything away. I have to be right back. I hear my baby boy is up. Well, that's unfortunate. I don't know what to do about that. Alright, can you hear me? Am I still cutting out? Alright, I don't have any toys here, baby. What?
Is there a toy on your table?
Mm-mm.
Wait, is there a paper in here?
What? Whoa, whoa. I guess I'll just throw this one in. Okay, so I've dropped another model in. This is a hurricane wheel. So I'm gonna just drag that in. I want to double check the fit here of these things. I'm assuming everything will be just fine. Oh, looks like it. Okay, there we go. I can see it. 1090 degrees. Oh, they didn't model in the screw holes here. So I'm gonna eyeball it because it looks like there's plenty of extra room around the wheel based off of this. That is not right, I don't think. Alright, so again, this is all just eyeballing, but I do have to make sure that the, that's interesting. Huh, how did I make this so long? Anyway, whatever. So I'm going to have to check to make sure that we can slide this past the wheels. It shouldn't be a problem. I can do it on all kinds of things. Alright, I'm going to have to check. I have to check this trigger too. So a lot of what I do is I'll check to make sure things work or don't or do not work. So this needs more. So I obviously need more trigger guard room. So I'll just grab that shit and move it, which means I'll move that too. I have not worried. I think I said this last time, but I haven't been worrying just yet about the ergonomics. I do like to pay attention to that pretty early on into the development of things, but it takes. I think I probably spend about 30% of my time adjusting the ergos of things. So right now I can already tell I don't think this grip is going to be too comfortable. So it will take a lot of work. Anyway, let's actually do the section analysis of this with the mag. Oh, that's interesting. It's not at a 90-degree angle. Ew, gross. Allie! Oh my gosh. Hey, you keep taking those from me.
Do you like them?
I'm okay, actually, though.
No, but
They're sticks.
and I put them.
No, not select fire. I'm thinking it's either going to be solenoid or my geared pusher system for a 2-round burst. And I guess by being solenoid, it could be a 2-round burst. Or it could be select fire in that case. But I don't really feel like doing that. Create a copy, so we're just gonna keep making copies so we can check the feed. I really have been thinking about replacing all of my PMags anyway. They're not feeding so great anymore. I really love a lot of printed mags, so I think that I might legitimately be totally fine to set up a whole loadout on printed mags that are big, like full-size mags. So that's part of why I'm thinking about this whole design anyway. As for the Sentinel being a blaster of the people, I have my replacement for the Sentinel right here. It is working, and I'm really happy about that. I don't know. I'll actually go pull up a link for my group. It has recently become a closed group. Um, just because some people needed to have a little more privacy so that they could be a part of bookmarks. I don't want to bookmark. How do I share the group? Share. I'm gonna grab the link for you guys. I just want the fragging link. Ugh. Ugh. All right. Hopefully that works. Well, I can probably like cut all that stuff, right? Um. So if you're not part of my group, feel free to join. It was an MHP group, but it's kind of become a general purpose printed blaster group for people who are not FDL and Captain Slug with the Caliber. And I have zero problem with either of those blasters. I think they're both great. But they're great enough individually that they have huge followings. This is for things like the Viper and the... Yes, no, I am not working on my not sling fire. I just pulled it open. Um, so anyway, I was talking about my group. So it started as an MHP group, but things like the Viper and the Woozy, which I love both of those designs. There's so many cool designs out there, but they don't have quite the following to get a group where there's a ton of people interacting and talking about these designs and stuff. So that's what my group has become. I have shared a link here. I'll just double check that it works. Yeah. So that's, you know, anyway, so that's kind of where that is. I actually, if you join the group, I have some videos of my lever action, the Type LR, working, and working reasonably well. I've been able to get, my highest shot was 140 FPS with it, which, considering shells, this is my first time making any kind of Springer, really, LVAT. It's pretty efficient, considering, but I gotta keep doing, I keep going and make it better, but I'm waiting on metal parts and stuff. I talked about this earlier, so. Um, so, so this, let's see, where was I? So to make, where'd my solenoid go? Let's check that. Okay, because we need to be able to fit that. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a hole in the back here. Um, I guess all the way. Take off the solenoid. Um, take off that. Just to be sure, let's take off the lower two. I don't want to like do too much. Bring this up here with my other firing stuff. I want to try and keep things organized. I should make like a full, is that an empty component? No, that's my gas block for fun. Muzzle for fun. Barrel for not fun. Anyway, I'm kind of losing my place on this a little bit because there's just always so much to talk about that I get distracted. Alright, so I'm gonna cut, whoops, well, I mean that's okay. I'm bigger at 130 motors, guys. I also don't know how I'm gonna make this thing like assemble, but I've got a few ideas. Okay, let's move that there. Okay, I gotta go grab my boy, see what's up with him. I tend to use 130s because, you know, a Fang or a Kraken has as much power as a 180. I've never seen any reason to go beyond that. Besides that, you're just chasing numbers. You know, I was planning on making it probably have a motor cover though, so that you could use whatever you wanted. Um, I think these are far bigger than 130s. So, you know. Ideally, though, it would just sit flush, and that would be cool. I love the profile when you don't have a motor cover. It just makes things feel so much better. But, and you know, if I make it wider in the first place, so they did this thing. They changed it so my default viewing system isn't perspective, and that bugs me. So what we can do, can we actually just bring this up? Yeah, probably. Can we bring it up that high? Yeah, we can. See, that's what I said. Revamps are fine. I prefer Krakens. I just like them better. I have one 2S battery and a lot of 3S batteries, so I tend to err on the side of 3S systems. But they're essentially the same motor, like for our intents and purposes. We can plan on using either of them equally well. So that tends to be why I just design around using 130s. You get pretty much the same performance, but with the improved aesthetics that we can get from a 130 motor, and that's cool. I'm cool with that. I don't like this trigger guard. I think it's time to exit. You might find, depending on what you're building, that you actually needed something like a Neo Hellcat, but they're kind of like such overkill without actually improving any of the real specs that are needed for the systems that we're using nowadays, that I don't see any reason to spend like, how much are those, like $10 or $15 a motor or whatever, without going brushless. Um, that depends on your budget. I love my Creality CR10 is my favorite printer, but a cheap option is the Ender 3 is really good. It's the same, pretty much the same printer but smaller. That one's good. If you want to break the bank, Prusas are great. Um, the I have a Maker Select V2, which is sort of like a knockoff Prusa. I don't know how cheap those are right now anymore, but I really like that one. It's not great, but it's okay. We did end up replacing the hot end with like a Micro Swiss Full Metal hot end, and so it's actually now, because we did that, it's really reliable. Like I can count on it to print more things than my CR10 can, like more filaments. I don't know why before we moved, I could print any filament. I just had to bump the temp up sometimes. But now I can't print certain brands and certain kinds reliably in my CR10. I don't know what changed, but you know, I just use Hatchbox and everything's fine if I just use the right brand. Anyway, um, so what this what does this need? We've got cage, we've got wheels, we've got a mag, we've got a pusher, we've got a mag release. Well, I haven't made a battery compartment yet, actually. What I have mocked up, let me find it, is just this. I don't even know where this thing came from, but I've got this battery mock-up here from somewhere. Um, I think it came from a parts folder. I need to go and measure my batteries. Um, when I can, I try to plan for a 2200 milliamp hour battery, but I always try to make room for at least like a 1500 nanotech if I can, which is what the FDL3 uses. Those are great batteries, and so I try to use those whenever possible. The battery is undecided as of now, though. It could probably pretty easily go up here in the front under the barrel. I don't want to do that because then it changes this angle, which will make it less comfortable. And also that the barrel is actually pretty low. We don't have a ton of room there. What I was probably going to do, since I wasn't planning on making this a small blaster, is have a battery stock. And then if we have a battery stock, it can be as big as you want. You can fit a 5,000 milliamp hour battery probably. We can just grab this and keep making it as big as we want if we do a battery stock. I haven't decided yet because I haven't decided on all of the features and things that we've got going here. Because I need to decide what features do we have. Do we have a charging handle? Do we have a reciprocating bolt? And actually with this setup, I want the reciprocating bolt because it can allow you to create jams and stuff, and I could probably fit a battery down in here. It's just that I'm not entirely sure how it'll work out. And, I can make changes to the aesthetics and no one would probably even notice. Like if we dropped this whole thing down here down, no one will probably notice that it's a little longer except me, and I don't want to. Or I could bring the rail up and things like that. It turns out, as I've gotten a lot more comfortable and better at at the design side of this, you can do a lot of stuff without any actual noticeable problems that you maybe thought would be a problem that aren't. I made some design compromises on a lot of my older blasters because I thought that really super minor thing. Actually, I can show an example of that. I have this upper receiver here. I had a different upper that I actually already deleted. It had a curve in here that was difficult to print, so it needed supports. And in the end, once I printed this upper, I couldn't actually even like tell the difference on it. I couldn't tell that it had that shape there, and so it was like, why did I go to all this effort to make this subtle shape and design that you couldn't even see, that made it harder to produce, and and it looks better without it anyway. This one actually does have that same kind of like lip, but it's at just such an angle that if you've got your printer set up well enough, it prints great. This prints fine. Actually, this part doesn't print so good because it has to print that on supports and, upside down anyway. And this is going to have to be chopped a lot for the fit, and I'm not sure the best way to do that is either. There's not like a best practices with a lot of these things, to be honest. Where do we want a reciprocating bolt? I mean, it's got to be attached to this, so we can't really do all that much. It's going to be here. This was one of the things that I thought was going to be like stupid on my bullpup. Alright, why won't you go? Dom, why do you do that? He's okay, Ellie. Yeah, I know. It's okay, Ellie. Um. So, there's a lot of like sitting and looking at things, and there's no getting around that. It just is how it is. I've never figured out how to not just have to spend 20 minutes at a time looking at things and stuff. So what I'm going to do, since I'm just modifying parts for this anyway, and I don't think, so when I was talking to Jesse Graff about making tutorial videos, and no, I don't know, no comments about him or anything really. He just, life got in the way and we couldn't do it together like we originally intended. Wait, that won't work. But we were going to make this like sort of like an open source, basic, almost like a Strife kind of thing, like the, oh man, the Griffin, the Meeker Mark, is it the Mark 16? Various things. And I'm kind of moving away from that just because I can release the step files for this. I don't really have a problem with that personally. That actually doesn't bother me at all to do, but I do feel like I don't want to compromise what I want. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, I don't want a full length, normal mag blaster that doesn't fill any gameplay needs that I have. I have found that I really like my bullpup with its 2-round burst, but it's not quite reliable enough, and the bullpup configuration kind of makes it hard for me to run. It's just not as comfortable as I want it to be. So, a traditional configuration, conventional layout blaster is probably more useful to me. I don't want to shoot anything full length, but I need compatibility with worker Gen 3 darts because that's what I have, that's what our group is moving to, that's just like how it is. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to make an entire blaster and ecosystem for myself. And that's, fine. But that means that this will be less accessible to other people unless they want to print the entire thing and the whole, like, mechanic and all of that stuff. And that's a sacrifice I am willing to make. Dumb, could you, like, stop throwing stuff on the ground? And, as always, I design these things for me first, and that's how it is. I can't really not do that. And so you guys get what you get. I like making things for the world to an extent, but at the same time, like, you know, I still am also just in the business of making the things that I feel like I will actually use and want to use, so. So I actually do that very thing a lot. I've partnered with Derek's son, Frontline Foam, um, whatever name you want to kind of give him. I've partnered with him many times, actually, on various designs. He's the primary seller of the pigeon and all of my designs, really, um, if we want to get down to it. And that's just ridiculous. I don't know about that. Or do I know about that? You know what I'm going to do? We're going to make that a new component. Because we do need a feed guide through the whole thing. Although, actually, a jam door is one of the things that I would like to improve on this design over my old one. Because the old one had no jam door. If you had a jam, and this mag setup jams a lot, you had to pull out the mag, you had to try and fix it, you had to check, turn it upside down and check. So, anyway, so he sells them, I get a percentage, and that actually works out amazingly well for me. It's just that, like, and that's with STLs, the printing files are all available and stuff. I don't mind that in the least. It's that making something as like a platform for other people to modify is really difficult. Partly because it's actually just difficult to design for that. I will be right back. So anyway, the actual problem that I have is designing for a universal platform, so to speak, that can be modified easily and stuff. That just does something that I don't want isn't, really my jam. I don't. Like I was saying, I do not mind in the least people, for the most part, depends on the design. I don't mind people modifying them. I don't mind people printing them. I don't mind people making occasional cells like their friend wants one, so they print one for their friend or something. That sort of stuff doesn't really bother me. Um, it's more just the nature of the kinds of designs and stuff. It's kind of hard to, like, you know, it's just hard to make something that can be universal like that. That's kind of true. The way that Slug did it, though, is, I mean, this might sound judgmental. It's not supposed to be. He made it fully open source. He shared the working files, like the fusion files, so to speak, the step files. He, but the most striking thing that he did, what he did was a completely open license that anyone could do anything to it and could sell it legally with no repercussions, with no kickbacks to him, with no consequences. That means that the Caliburn is extremely open source, 100% open source. I haven't done that. I have step files available on my Etsy shop for the Pigeon Mark 7, which isn't the latest one. Just because some people wanted to customize them, I figured it's easy to use that as a distributing platform. But that's still kind of, even then, sort of closed source. I always do mine as non-commercial, and if you want to sell commercially, you can talk to me. I'm pretty amenable to it. But I don't do things generally that open source. There are a few things that I have put up that are like that because I don't see any point in it. Like, I actually, the triggers, originally it was a solenoid, so we need two switches. So what I'll eventually do is probably have separate lowers or handles. I think this part was, so this part was separate, so this is what I'll put the switch mounting on. So when we have the geared pusher, where'd that go? I'll have like a grip rev or something. We'll have a rev trigger of some kind that's dedicated because the nature of it, you can't actually, you'll start pushing darts by the time it unpresses a switch because the trigger moves so little comparatively to the pusher. So it has to have a dedicated rev switch. There's like no way around that. Where the solenoid pusher, we can have a two-switch single trigger system, which I really like. But I'm changing the function of this somewhat because what I need or want is a 2-round burst conventional layout rifle. So with the Hurricane cage so that I can get 170 FPS with 2 shots at a time without sacrificing any capacity. So I'll actually have to adjust that, so I'll probably have to make a new lower receiver to accommodate all of the differences that those systems have, and having a swappable lower for that will be a lot better than having, actually, that will make this a lot easier because we can have a swappable lower. I'm going to write this down. We can have the lower swap the entire system out so that you could just change to a normal mag and a solenoid. I mean, we could just have this and then have the 2-round burst in this, but that's boring. I want an angled mag. That sounds way more fun. And new. Not really that new or different, but so I'll make a separate lower for geared pusher. So what I want to do now, I think, I don't know. Let me get my barrel back. I want to take a look at this and think about it, I guess. I need to, do we have tolerances there? That would be way more planning ahead than I would expect of myself. Oh, hey, do, amazing. Okay, we do not up here. We do not back here. Just drag that a little bit. And actually we'll bring this one out a little bit too. Pull this one back in because we don't want to, if you can avoid it having those sharp angles on triangular shapes, they print worse. So like here, this ends in a triangle. I added this flat edge so that when it gets to the top of the print, if it's upside down, it will just make a squared surface instead of a single line. And if you print with that down, say if we printed it in this orientation, it would have a better base to print off of. I think what we should do is look at my concept art. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Let's do that. Well, let's hope so. Good luck. I suspect you're gonna need it. I know I would. I can't do car stuff at all. Alrighty. Well, that's easy enough. We'll just add. I need some shape here. We need something here. Okay. Shape that back up. Okay. I don't know what to call this thing. Wait, where's that? Oh. Whatever. Rear thing. Okay, so we do want a charging handle. Need that. No, I still wonder. Probably we can't fit a battery up in the mid area, is my guess. We need to find the center. Oh, hey. Oh, if that fits. If that fits, this is absolutely where I want a battery at. Ooh, that will rub, though. Okay, let's see how much we can bring this up before it starts popping out. Oh, a lot. Oh, hell yes. We can do this. Then, what we can do, oh, I wonder if we could. I've been doing this for an hour? Oh, man. Okay. I found my battery location. Forget solenoids, those suck. Actually, we could still fit a solenoid in here with a smaller battery. Okay, cool. Although the solenoid needs the larger battery. There's no winning unless there is winning. We can win this. What we can do is exactly what I want to do, which is we move the solenoid back and then we put a pusher on it. Okay, cool. Cool bean. Save. How many? We need like, what, 4 inches here. I can't make sense of that math there. Oops. Okay, I found that you need about 4 inches of area for a grip. That has 3, so okay. How long is our front end entirely? Can't read it. 8.5. Okay. That could print on some pretty small printers. But we won't get good mounting there. Okay. We'll worry about cutting this down shorter some other time. How do I measure that? Well, I know for a fact that I have a comfortable hand guard. If I move, no, I need to go to finished. Grab this. This is copy a really good grip. Flip it. Long flip it. Alrighty. How we can actually really test if this is the right size. We can go to here and see if the stock is 12.5 inches. It's not. That means my canvas is too small. That's too big though. Let me see that I can get the shapes that I want from that. You guys. Oh, I don't know. Why, indeed. You were drawing on this one? Dum. Dum. That. Okay. We're gonna have to fix that. Sci-fi is fun and all, but real world means that we have actual data on what works and what doesn't in terms of things like mag releases. Guys. Okay, what we'll do, we will do a spline to don't drop all your food. Yeah, that's a mess, Dom. There's a big, huge mess, Dom. That looks wrong. I think I fucked that up. Well, what are you going to do? I'm sure it does. That doesn't actually look terrible, but that looks good. Why didn't it make that line? Oh, you fucker. Okay. Whoa, okay. Alrighty. That still looks wrong to me. I actually have a lot less experience making this style of grip than I do like mag and handle grips, like grip pads. And so I think I'm way better at making grip-fed grips than I am at making sort of this AR-style pistol grip. It's funny that they call it a pistol grip when pistols don't really have that kind of grip, to me. That should be fine and comfortable enough. What we'll do is bring that in a lot. That might be too thin though. Ah. That would not be good. Okay.
So what do you need? What do you need, little guy? You want down? You want down?
I guess that's, I don't know. I don't know if that's what he wanted or not. Yeah? Uh-huh. mock-up. If I could actually fit the battery here, that would be so cool. I don't think I'm going to be able to. No. Ah, dang it. Not without some sort of compromise. Although, actually, well, nah, let's make it happen. I want to find a way, because that's really a good spot. May be able to even make some kind of... Oh, hey, that might have did it. This is also a little higher, but we also need room for wires, so we can't just make this like as big as, or as small as possible. So I just did a fillet, whatever, on that edge, so that when it prints, it won't print just like a sharp angle. Especially with cutouts and stuff, that's kind of important, because it's really easy for like the cutouts to print thin. So that gives it a little more material, so we get a few more walls printed, if it even needed to print like a few walls or whatever. I'm also noticing that spot there. Let me check my phone. I might have to go pretty soon here, so
Do you have notebook, Dad?
no, I don't have Nerf work.
So what do you have?
To go get Mama. Sometime soon, maybe. Alrighty, oh wait, no, I want to take off the upper shroud. No, we didn't have dinner yet, baby. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, maybe in a bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna partially, extrude that. Well, actually, I'm not gonna do it that way. I'm gonna bring this out all the way, and then I'm gonna chop this spot here, and then I'm gonna grab this and I'm gonna just cut and turn it off, and then grab this and we'll cut the slot out for it, just like that, and then come in and clean up for some tolerances a little bit. But what I really wanted to do was actually just cut that there, because that is interesting. Because I don't want this to be too thin, but I also, just looking at it, realized, oh, that should be, just open in the back. We'll just have this thing slide in all the way through. Yeah, it'll just slide in, and maybe we'll make it have a pin or something to hold it. That's probably what I'm going to try and do, is make all of the major components hold together. Well, all the major components that need to come apart, I want them to come apart with pins. Okay, you know what, I actually do want to, I do want the handguard to be fully separate, because I actually want it to, well, no, we'll get to that some other time. I think I need to go. So we'll turn off, before I go, I'm going to turn off my ACR concept, because I don't want to get too attached to that, because I love that design, and it's really hard not to take too many cues from it if I'm not trying to make one, and I'm not trying to make one right now. It would be easy to make one, relatively. I even got files for that, so, and I was going to make one of those, do burst fire, but just picking up an old design, I don't know. I don't love just grabbing an old design to mess with. I usually like to make something new and special, which is why I'm here. That's just how I usually like to do things. If I'm just making the same thing again and again and again and again, I get kind of bored. There. looks pretty cool. Very star-like. I think I'll want to do some embellishments in the front for sure. Um, Probably some angles and stuff too. I usually don't like to leave things very square and flat in the front like that, so, you know. Anyway. Okay, well, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate everybody coming in to take a look. I'll keep doing this. I said in the last video that I was going to do this on Monday, and here it is Friday. So I'm just going to keep doing this when I can. But while I'm working on this blaster, I'm only going to do that while streaming. So if you are here and watching it, like if this is progressing, you can be here to watch it in theory. So, and that's how I'm going to keep it. I don't have that much internal drive to make this happen in my own time, so I'm just going to keep having it happen sort of on screen time. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys.